In 1998, Tomoaki Hamatsu agreed to take part in a Japanese reality TV show called A Life in Prizes. He was taken to a small, empty apartment, stripped naked, and given only a pen, blank postcards, and magazines. He was tasked to survive solely on prizes won through magazine sweepstakes until he accumulated 1 million yen worth of winnings. That's about $10,000 US.
I came across this iceberg while researching another case. At first, it looked like the usual internet horror. Short clips, viral incidents, things people talk about but rarely finish watching. But the deeper I went, the more uncomfortable it became. Not because of the gore, but because these videos were real moments. Unfiltered, unedited, and never meant to be archived. In this video, we are going to move through each level of the iceberg, analyzing what makes these videos so disturbing. Not just visually, but psychologically and ethically.
Tatsuya Ichihashi. After earning a first-class honors degree in biology, Lindsay Hawker planned to pursue a master's. So she packed up her life in England and moved to Japan, a decision that would ultimately cost her her life. One evening, as she was cycling home from work, a mysterious stranger approached her. He introduced himself as Tatsuya Ichihashi, a student in her class, but Lindsay didn't recognize him. Now concerned, she continued home. However, the guy began following her all the way to her shared apartment. Upon reaching, Tatsuya blatantly asked for a glass of water. Feeling sorry for him, Lindsay let him in and showed him to her flatmates as a precaution. Once inside, Tatsuya drew a picture of her and signed it with his name. Later, he asked to meet for a private lesson. Lindsay was hesitant, but she still agreed. On March 25, 2007, she left her apartment to meet Tatsuya at a nearby cafe. It suddenly started raining on her way home, so they took a taxi to Tatsuya's apartment. For some reason, Lindsay followed him in, instructing the driver to wait outside. When 7 minutes passed, the driver got tired of waiting and left to take another job. And that was the last time anyone saw Lindsay alive. Back in England, her parents grew worried when she didn't respond to calls for a day. Her friends contacted the police, but messages weren't conveyed properly within the department even after the school reported her missing. The next day, Lindsay was officially reported missing at 2:30 p.m., naming Tatsuya as the suspect. Police finally arrived at his apartment at 5:40 p.m. However, they weren't permitted to go in without proper authorization, so they peeked inside, noticed someone in the building with the lights off, and called for backup. For hours, the apartment stayed completely still. They knew he was still inside, so they kept the exit monitored. So when the door finally opened, they were ready. Or so they thought. At 9 p.m., Tatsuya walked out barefoot, carrying a rucksack. When the officers confronted him, he turned around like he wanted to use the key and, in a split second, pushed past them. Although one of the cops caught his rucksack, it slipped, and Tatsuya escaped. Unfortunately, none of the officers on the 4th floor had radios, so they couldn't alert those on the ground. Tatsuya escaped by jumping down the last few steps of the stairs. When authorities eventually entered the apartment, what they found was horrific. Lindsay's body was in the bath, her head shaved and one hand sticking out. The tub was filled with a mixture of sand and compost soil sprayed with a chemical used to decompose waste. When the cops observed her more closely, they found Tatsuya had attacked her and broken the cartilage in her neck. The next day, police put Tatsuya Ichihashi on the nationwide wanted list. They also released the drawing he made of Lindsay, hoping someone would recognize it. They followed every tip and sighting. After a few days, even an enhanced image of Tatsuya disguised as a woman was released. But all their efforts to locate him were futile. At one point, the police suggested that perhaps Tatsuya had committed suicide, but Lindsay's parents refused to believe it. They wanted answers. However, the case went cold until 2009, when information from a cosmetic surgery clinic revealed Tatsuya had altered his appearance. He removed the moles on his cheeks, added a fold to his eyelids, and made his lips thinner and had his nose lifted. Thus, the police immediately released a photograph of him taken just before his last surgery. About 2.5 years later, a ferry employee finally spotted a man matching his description. At the ferry station, officers found Tatsuya sitting with his head down. When asked to confirm his identity, he silently nodded and was quickly arrested. After 23 days of detention without charge, he admitted to killing Lindsay Hawker. In the end, on July 21st, 2011, Tatsuya Ichihashi was sentenced to life imprisonment.
It's actually terrifying because she didn't even know who this guy was. He approached her under the guise of wanting a language lesson, and you have to wonder, how long was he following her? How did he plan this? It feels like he actually had a script in his head even before he spoke to her. This is exactly why you can't be too careful. You are taught to be polite, and basically this shows why you need to know someone 100% before you stay with them alone. And even people close to us are even dangerous. So a total stranger is a massive risk, and the way he altered his face, that tells you everything you need to know about this soul. He wasn't a man who made a mistake. He was a man who would do anything, even mutilate himself, to get away with murder. Honestly, life in prison feels too light for a person like this. Why would someone who acted with this much malice get to keep his life? Even the way he handled the body was calculated. Let me tell you why he used that sand and compost. His goal was literally to mummify her. He wanted to suck the moisture out of her remains to stop the smell of the decomposition, so his neighbors wouldn't find out. Simply put, he was trying to create a makeshift grave by filling the tap with brim. The body was completely submerged and out of sight from anyone who might look over the balcony railing or enter the apartment. This is not just a crime, it's pure cold-blooded evil.
Soft White Underbelly. SWU for short is a successful channel created on April 24, 2016 by American photographer Mark Laida. Its content is focused on interviews with the objective of painting portraits of the human condition. This means that his videos feature people often looked down upon by society and served as a way for them to tell their stories.
You guys are married?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
14 years. We met in rehab 14 years ago.
Oh, you met in rehab?
Yes.
Mark achieves this by asking questions meant to get his guests to talk as much as possible and just letting them speak.
I was lucky enough to have internet in the house and computers in the house at a young age, thanks to my dad.
From addicts to ex-criminals and sex workers from all around the U.S., Mark's videos are somewhere between educational and shocking, being raw but still within YouTube's guidelines. His channel has 6 million subscribers, and all his other socials are also relatively successful. With millions of eyes on him, he has made a ton of money and gotten just as much criticism. Mark's videos are divisive, not so much in their content, but in regards to their ethics. Mark has a merch store, has published a book, and has many sponsors on his videos, meaning that he makes money out of showcasing people's often terrible lives. There's no shortage of people calling that exploitation, while many also come to his defense. The truth is that it's pretty gray. Mark doesn't help improve these people's lives, but he gives them a voice. He lets them be seen and heard, but he does make money from it. And while he makes money, these people don't.
It's a complicated situation. On the positive side, he's shining a light on people society has completely thrown away, giving them a platform to tell their own stories in their own words. It humanizes the struggle of human addiction in a way that's hard to ignore. But on the negative side, there is a thin line between documenting and exploiting. Is it right to profit off someone's trauma while they remain in the same miserable condition? He gives them a voice, but he doesn't give them a ladder. The crazy thing is, even though these videos get millions of views, the creator doesn't often step in to change their situation. It's like he's just a collector of sad stories. It makes you wonder, is he actually giving them a voice, or he is just using their struggles to build his own brand? Let me know what you actually think right now.
Laundromat explosion. On March 14th, 2023, a man was doing his washing at a laundromat in A Coruña, Spain, unaware that he was about to become a part of a terrifying and inexplicable incident. The man exited the store with his laundry bags just seconds before a machine near the entrance exploded, sending violent shockwaves that shattered the windows and ripped the store's signage off the building entirely. Had the man been in the building even slightly longer, he likely would not have made it out. When police investigated the scene later, they discovered that a customer had left a lighter inside their pants pocket. The butane inside had ignited under the high heat of the dryer, creating the perfect conditions for spontaneous combustion. However, not everybody believes the police's conclusion, suggesting that it was actually a cover story for something more sinister. Fortunately, nobody was injured in the disaster, but this man came closer to being hurt or killed than anybody else, forcing the laundromat to put very clear warnings about washing clothes with items in their pockets.
It's one of the craziest close call videos on the internet. We talk about criminals like Ichihashi being calculated, but this show's randomness is just as scary. A guy almost died because someone else forget a $2 lighter refill in their pants. It makes you realize that sometimes the difference between life and death is just literally 5 seconds and a walk to the door.
Nasubi. In 1998, Tomoaki Hamatsu agreed to take part in a Japanese reality TV show called A Life in Prizes that would become one of the most controversial, disturbing, and ethically questionable experiments in television history. Tomoaki was an aspiring comedian, selected through an open audition and led to believe he was participating in a challenge that wouldn't be widely broadcast, but could lead to other career opportunities. He was taken to a small, empty apartment, stripped naked, and given only a pen, blank postcards, and magazines. He was tasked to survive solely on prizes won through magazine sweepstakes until he accumulated 1 million yen worth of winnings. That's about $10,000 US. But what Tomoaki didn't know was that his entire experience was being filmed and broadcast to over 15 million viewers every single week. For the next 15 months, he lived in total isolation with no clothes, limited food, and minimal human contact. Viewers came to love him. His constant nudity led the network to cover his intimate area with an eggplant, which the Japanese called Nasubi, his new nickname. Nasubi's struggle for survival was both fascinating and horrifying. He would go weeks without proper food, resorting to eating dog food and uncooked rice. And no matter how hard he tried, he never won any substantial clothing, leaving him naked throughout the ordeal. The psychological toll of the whole experiment was so intense that Nasubi would often experience breakdowns, crying and screaming, all on camera, and the public loved it. Nasubi became so popular that the show's producers had to move him between different locations to prevent fans from discovering his whereabouts and ruining the entire experiment. But the show's most disturbing moment came when Nasubi finally reached his goal. Nasubi was flown to Korea, then back to Japan, where he was suddenly revealed to a live studio audience, still naked and disoriented. The shock of this revelation and the realization that millions had been watching him suffer was overwhelming for him. The whole ordeal had lasting effects on Nasubi's mental and physical health, including hair loss, body aches, and insomnia. But somehow, despite the trauma, Nasubi has since found purpose in helping victims of the 2011 Fukushima disaster and even climbing Mount Everest.
If you think soft white underbelly guy is bad, look at the producers of Nasubi. They took a human being, stripped him of his clothes and dignity, and turned his starvation into a comedy show for 15 million people. He was eating dog food while they were making millions in ad revenue. It's the ultimate example of what happens when we treat humans just for content. He wasn't a person to them, he was just a character in a room. The fact that he instinctively stripped when he saw camera at the end shows he was basically broken for entertainment. What's really sick is that the producers knew exactly what they were doing. They were watching a man's mind, and the body literally whisked away for rating. If he died or had a total mental breakdown, they would have just edited around it. It wasn't just absurd, it was a 15 months human violation that left him with scars he will carry away for the rest of his life. He didn't win a game, he survived an assault on his humanity.
Balloon Boy Hoax. On October 15, 2009 at 11:29 a.m., Richard Heen called 911, his voice frantic as he reported his son Falcon was trapped inside a silver saucer-shaped object rapidly flying across the sky above Colorado.
Is there a flying saucer? It's a flying saucer.
Yeah.
And that's gone too, right?
I'm sorry?
How long is the flying saucer gone as well?
Yeah, about 20 minutes, I think.
They've both been missing for about 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta get my son.
Okay. Hang on just 1 second. Don't hang up, okay? Just a minute.
I'm going to ask all three of you to hang on just a minute because we have rather an incredible breaking news story that we're following right now. And this is coming to us out of Colorado. What you all see right there is an experimental aircraft that inside of which is a 6-year-old boy.
Emergency responders scrambled to his Fort Collins home as local news helicopters chased and tracked the path of this homemade helium balloon. By noon, cable workers broadcast live footage of the 20-foot wide balloon drifting 7,000 feet above ground, with anchors speculating about the child trapped inside getting dangerously close to power lines. For nearly 2 hours, the balloon traveled 50 miles across 3 counties, diverting air traffic and mobilizing National Guard helicopters to try and help. Crowds gathered below, terrified that the balloon would fall and kill the boy. At 1:35 p.m., the craft crash-landed in a field northeast of Denver. Deputies rushed to access the balloon and free the boy, only to discover it was empty.
Sitting there open, but again, there's no child here.
The boy was not inside, so where the hell was he? Authorities interrogated the family for hours, getting as much information as possible for a full investigation. But then, at 4:14 p.m., a sheriff's deputy heard a shriek at the Heen home. Falcon emerged from the garage attic unharmed, telling the authorities he'd hidden after fearing punishment for playing near the balloon. In all media interviews, his mother was in tears, saying she thought he was dead. But thankfully, all disaster was averted. Almost. That evening, the family was giving an interview to CNN when Falcon suddenly blurted out the fatal words, "You guys said we did this for the show."
He's asking Falcon, did you hear us calling your name at any time? You did?
You did?
Why didn't you come out?
You guys said that we did this for the show.
Yeah.
The investigation ended up uncovering a highly elaborate staged plan. The Heens had built the balloon to pitch a reality TV series, filming their children throughout the process. Falcon was supposed to hide briefly in the basement, but he fell asleep in the attic instead. On October 18th, Larimer County Sheriff Jim Alderton officially declared the incident a hoax. Richard pleaded guilty to felony charges, serving 90 days in jail. Mayumi received 20 days for misdemeanor false reporting. The story generated 34 of Google's top 40 searches that day, with late-night shows and memes mocking the family even more. In 2020, Colorado Governor Jared Polis pardoned the Heens, though they have always maintained their innocence.
We have to look at the empathy tax this family charged the world. For 2 hours, millions of people were genuinely traumatized, thinking they were watching die. When a hoax like this happens, it makes people hesitate when they see real emergency happens again. It trains us to ask, is this real? Before we ask, how can I help? That is a dangerous way for a society to think. We shouldn't just laugh at the silver balloon. We should be disturbed by what it represented. The moment we realize that for some people, fame is a drug more powerful than the love for their children, they didn't just chase a balloon. They chased a lie until it nearly destroyed their family. The balloon hoax isn't just a joke. It's a warning about what happens when the cameras become more important than the person in front of it.
Panda attacks zookeeper. On September 19th, 2024, a zookeeper was trying to close the door to a restricted area, but it kept bouncing back. On the other side was Ding Ding, a 9-year-old panda trying to push its way through. Frustrated, the zookeeper slammed the door hard, unknowingly hitting the panda's paw. In a split second, Ding Ding turned aggressive. In full view of stunned zoo visitors, he charged at the zookeeper, knocking her to the ground. She screamed for help as the panda climbed on top of her, grabbing her with one paw and sinking its teeth into her arm. The struggle lasted several seconds. She kicked and twisted beneath his weight, eventually managing to push him off with his legs and scramble to her feet. The panda backed off just long enough for her to escape. The entire attack was caught on camera, not in the wild, but in a public zoo under broad daylight. Both the keeper and Ding Ding survived without major injuries. According to the zoo, Ding Ding never showed aggression again. The entire encounter lasted under a minute, but long enough to show how quickly things can shift when instincts take over.
Most people don't realize that in modern zoos, keepers and large animals aren't supposed to be in the same place. This wasn't a system failure, not just a mean panda. Zookeepers use protected contacts, meaning there's always a fence between them. But in this clip, a simple mechanical error, that door not latching, turned into a routine chore, into a fight for survival. It shows that in a zoo, your life is literally held together by a metal boat. When that boat fails, you are no longer a caregiver, you are a prey. The most disturbing part of this video is the contrast. We are used to seeing pandas in a funny fail compilations where they fall off trees. So when we see them with that level of calculated aggression, it hits the uncanny valley. It feels wrong because it breaks the character we have assigned to them. We turn them into stuffed animals in our mind. And this video is the brutal reminder that nature doesn't care about our artistic or how we think animal is.
Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. Siegfried Fischbacher and Roy Horn were a pair of German-American illusionists and entertainers, popularly called the Tiger Kings. The two met on a cruise liner in 1959 after Siegfried asked Roy, who was working as a waiter, to assist him during a show. Over the next 4 decades, the two would go from performing on cruise lines to nightclubs across Europe before finally making it to hotels and casinos in Las Vegas, where they made it big after landing a deal to work at the Mirage. Their magical extravaganza, which featured rare white tigers, lions, and elephants, would gross $500 million in just 1 decade, breaking box office records. Then, everything came crashing down during a show on October 3rd, 2003. It was Roy's 59th birthday, and he was performing in front of a live audience with Manticore, a 400-pound white tiger. But something happened that night, and the animal would end up biting into Roy's neck while dragging him to his cage. It would take 4 men and a fire extinguisher to get the tiger off Roy. Roy suffered a stroke, a severe spine injury, and massive blood loss. Though he survived, his time in the limelight had come to an end. In a rare show of mercy, Manticore was deemed blameless and not put down. The entire attack was recorded by the casino, but they never released the footage to the public out of respect for Roy's privacy.
There is something called predatory drift. It's a glitch in the animal's brain. You could be playing, laughing, or feeding them, but if you trip, or if your voice hits a certain high pitch, or if you show a drop of blood, their kill drive overrides everything else. At that moment, they don't see a friend or a zookeeper. They see a wounded animal that needs to be finished. You can feed an animal for 10 years. You can name it and you can bond with it. But you cannot delay 10 years of survival instinct. What we saw in that video wasn't a panda turning evil. It was just an animal being an animal. If you actually respect these creatures, you will stay behind the glass. Real love for nature is giving them their space to be dangerous, because at the end of the day, a predator doesn't own you a happy ending just because you were nice to it.
Killer clown craze. On October 7th, 2016, at around 2:30 a.m., Wisconsin police received multiple 911 calls reporting 2 individuals in clown masks chasing vehicles and pedestrians. When police arrived at the scene, the dash cam captured them confronting 2 men, aged 20 and 29, and a 26-year-old woman who had driven the group around during the prank. The investigation into the incident led them to realize that the woman and one of the men were a couple with a 4-year-old daughter, and not only were they terrorizing the community, but they completely abandoned their child, leaving her unsupervised in their home while engaging in these psychotic late-night antics. The child was alone for hours before authorities intervened. The Department of Human Services eventually placed the child in custody of the Department of Human Services, while the parents faced charges of child neglect. The woman was also held on a probation violation. The accomplice, not related to the couple, was released without charges. The couple had jumped onto a nationwide trend of creepy clown sightings and pranks in 2016, but this case stood out due to the neglect allegations. Police Chief Tim Stajka released a statement condemning the parents' actions, emphasizing the dangers of both abandoning a young child and provoking potentially intoxicated drivers during early morning hours. But we wouldn't condemn you for liking and subscribing to this video, so it might be worth thinking about.
We laugh at the Killer Crown era because it looks goofy, but don't forget the darkness underneath. We had parents literally abandoning their toddlers to play monsters game in the streets. That actually proves clout is a drug. It makes you forget your instinct, forget your duties, and forget that the most important thing in your life isn't the person watching the video. It's the person waiting for you to come home.
Michaela Witter. It was August 8th, 2023, and TikToker Michaela Witter was headed to a Barnes & Noble store in Burbank, California as part of a 100 solo dates idea vlog. So far, Michaela had bought a Starbucks, walked around, and browsed some shelves. When she noticed a man following her around and placed her phone on a shelf with the back camera facing her to capture anything weird, he said. At first, he seemed to be doing the same thing Michaela was, looking for a book. Then things got weird. He crawled up behind her and seemingly sniffed her butt. Michaela didn't notice what had just happened, and the man walked off and did the same thing to another woman. After that, he returned to Michaela and stooped down for another sniff, but he wasn't lucky this time. When a startled Michaela asked him what he was doing behind her, he claimed he was tying his shoelaces and even tried to turn the question back on her. But Michaela didn't buy any of it. After looking through the video and seeing what he was doing, Michaela reported him at the front desk. After she shared the disturbing video, more than 20 other women identified him and said he had done the same thing to them. Some even posted videos. Michaela later reported to the police, and 2 days later, 37-year-old Khalees Crowder was behind bars. It turned out he had a lengthy rap sheet dating back to 2005 from robbery and burglary convictions to offenses like indecent exposure. Former Lakers star Robbie Horry revealed on Twitter that Khalees had stalked his 14-year-old daughter 10 years earlier and ended up in jail. In fact, just 2 days before his brush with Michaela, Khalees had been caught peeping into a home. Khalees was sentenced to 2 months in jail for the butt-sniffing incident, but was released within days because the jail was overcrowded. He was supposed to register himself as a sex offender, but didn't. That move got Khalees arrested again and back behind bars. Hopefully he stays there this time.
This is actually funny until it's your sister. It's a meme until you realize he's been doing this for years. And the police keeps letting him back in the same stores. We can laugh at the visual of a grown man crawling. But let's be real. The only person who needs self-help is the guy who thinks Barnes and Noble is a dog park. Respect to Michaela for recording him. Because the only thing embarrassing is that he thought he could get away with his bad behavior. As funny how he looks crouching by the trailers, what he's doing is predatory stalking. He isn't just weird, he's a registered offender who knows exactly what he's doing.
Woman attacked at apartment gym. On January 22nd, 2023, 24-year-old fitness trainer and bodybuilder Nashali Alma was working out alone in her apartment gym when she heard a knock on the door. Residents usually access the gym with their key fob, but Nashali had seen the man once before and assumed he had forgotten his. So she opened the door and went back to her workout. A mistake that almost cost her. The man, Xavier Jones, whom she just let in, didn't look like he was there to exercise. He wasn't wearing socks and he roamed around the gym without touching any equipment. But Nashali was so focused on her workout that she didn't notice him. After a few minutes of roaming around, Xavier moved closer to grab her by the waist. She pushed him back, screaming, but he chased her around the gym, trying to corner her. When Nashali tried dialing 911, he became more aggressive. He grabbed her and struggled to take the phone from her, but she fought back. She toppled over him, punched him several times on the head with her phone before locking him between her legs and refused to stop fighting. Eventually, she broke free and ran outside to call emergency services. The next day, Xavier knocked on a different woman's door after watching her for several minutes on her balcony. He took a few steps into her apartment before being scared off by the woman's fiancé. The live identification from the second victim, the police arrested Xavier, who confirmed that he wanted to rock Nashali. He was charged with battery, false imprisonment, kidnapping, and burglary. 2 days after the attack, Nashali returned to the same gym, the place where she nearly lost control of her own story. She was later awarded Hillsborough County's first ever Strength and Courage Award.
Alma is a legend because she proved fitness isn't just for the gram, it's for the fight. The guy thought he was picking an easy target, but he ended up getting his ego and his criminal record destroyed by a woman who refused to be statistic. The lesson here, ladies, keep training. Guys, if you think you can pull this predator nonsense in a public space, remember, the person you are targeting might just be the one who puts you in a chokehold until the cops arrive.
Seattle Zombie Woman. In March 2021, a video surfaced on TikTok of an injured woman limping down the street crying for help. It looked like a zombie hoax or an extra from The Walking Dead out for a laugh, till the Seattle police appeared on the scene and the woman continued to scream.
I don't know exactly.
She had a ghostly, pale face and was holding something bloody. The officers were trying to calm her, but she continued to act erratically and speak gibberish. At one point, she mentioned a baby. This had people wondering if the bloody object in her hand could be a baby's head. The shocking video went viral. People were coming up with their theories on what had happened, from a brutal attack by her ex-boyfriend and his dog to severe mental illness. The Seattle Police Department also stayed hush about the whole incident. Finally, in 2022, YouTuber Rebecca MS would solve the case after getting the police body cam. The body cam showed when paramedics showed up and confirmed that the Seattle zombie woman was nothing more than theatrical makeup and fake blood. And the brains behind the hoax was a woman called Kimberly Kasai. Kimberly had done the stunt to convey her views on vaccinations.
The Seattle zombie wasn't a monster. She was a mirror. She showed us exactly what we've become. A society that would rather film a tragedy rather than helping human beings. The next time you see something creepy on the streets, ask yourself if you are looking for a glitch or just a person who has been failed by everyone around them. She wasn't dangerous to the public. She was a danger to herself.
Arab Andy. It was June 2018, and a YouTube prankster known as Arab Andy wanted to perform his biggest stunt yet, pranking the University of Washington. He came up with this whole elaborate plan that would scare everybody and guarantee the video to go viral. He walked into a classroom during an end-of-year reception carrying a phone and a speaker. Raising it into the air, he played a message stating that a bomb had been activated and a countdown had begun.
C4 has been successfully activated. Bomb detonation countdown successfully started.
Everyone in the building had only a short space of time to escape before they would be killed. The 30 people present freaked out exactly as Andy had planned. They desperately fled the room, activating the fire alarm in the process. The university took the threat deadly seriously, evacuating several nearby buildings as a precaution. But all of this was fake. Andy had begun the prank entirely because a viewer donated $4.20. And even after all of the chaos was unfolding on campus, he continued to live stream people's terrified reactions to his prank in total amusement and satisfaction. University of Washington police did not find it funny. They quickly tracked him down and arrested him, charging him with the crime of making a bomb threat. There was never an actual bomb, but the incident caused significant distress and disruption to faculty and students. Andy quickly faced the consequences of such a foolish prank. A judge set his bail at $75,000, ordering him to stay off YouTube before the trial. He was ultimately sentenced to 2 years in jail.
People are just foolish these days and would do anything to risk their life or go viral. Imagine you are sitting in your morning lecture, stressing about a maths test, and this guy walks in with a GoPro strapped to his chest like a low-budget action hero. Then a computer voice starts a countdown. In his head, he's generating a content. But in the real world, people are literally just jumping out of windows and trampling each other because they think they are about to die. And the funny thing is, he did this for just $4.2 donation, which is kind of insane. And that is the current market price for a mass panic, $4.20. He traded his freedom for a few digital hats and a laugh from people who didn't even know his real name.
Passenger jumps off cruise ship. On May 26, 2024, the Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas was in the middle of its week-long voyage from Miami. The ship was around 300 miles from port, and one man inexplicably decided to jump from the ship's 5th deck, a 90-foot drop into the highly shark-infested waters. The incident was captured by onboard surveillance cameras and guests, with the overboard detection system immediately triggered and forcing crew members to stop the boat immediately and begin a search for the body. Rescue teams deployed a boat to search the waters around the boat, along with the U.S. Coast Guard. Within a few hours, the body was recovered, but it was far too late to save him. By the time the body was returned to the ship, he was pronounced legally dead. Of course, those on board the ship had no idea what had happened and applauded the announcement that his body had been recovered, believing that he had been found alive. After a 2-hour pause, the cruise ship continued on its route, with most of the guests on board continuing their planned activities, something that horrified some of those on board who believed the cruise should have been immediately stopped.
The video you just watched doesn't really tell you the most disturbing part. This wasn't an accident. This was a 20-year-old having a temper tantrum at 4 a.m. He told his dad, "I'll fix this right now," and leaped. That turns this tragic accident into an act of ultimate arrogance. Now, what the footage doesn't show you and makes this 10 times disturbing is why he did that. Report from passengers on the ship says he had just gotten a heated blow-up with his dad. He didn't jump because he was lost. He jumped punish his father. He turned a family vacation into a crime scene because he couldn't handle being told no. That is not a tragedy. That's a masterclass in being reckless. There is no undo button when you hit the water. If you are having a hard time, walk to the other side of the deck, get some air, or go to the cabin and sleep it off. But don't be so arrogant that you think you are bigger than the ocean.
Waterfall. In 2016, 26-year-old Heather Friesen was hiking along the Ka'au Crater Trail in Hawaii. She had a GoPro camera mounted on her body, filming her trek as she reached a waterfall. While positioning herself, she stepped on a wet rock near the edge. Her foot slipped, and she plunged 50 feet down. As she tumbled, her body slammed into jagged rocks on the way down before crashing into a pool of water below. For nearly 20 seconds, she lay submerged, groaning in pain and struggling to breathe. 2 nearby hikers rushed to help. One called for emergency services, and Heather was airlifted out by a rescue helicopter. She survived with 10 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and a fractured scapula. Some blamed the fall on her focus being too fixed on filming, while others argued it was just bad luck. But Heather believes something else saved her. Others who had fallen at that same spot never made it out alive.
Ida Friesen fall is the ultimate warning. The view is never worth the fall. We become a society that lives for shots and forgets survival. She survived to tell the tale, but thousands of them don't.
Freezer death. On September 8, 2017, 19-year-old Kenika Jenkins borrowed her mother's car to attend a party with friends. She never made it home. Around 11:30 p.m., Kenika and 3 friends arrived at the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Chicago. The party was on the 9th floor in room 926. The room was packed with nearly 40 people in a space meant for 2, but it didn't stop the girls from having fun. Just 15 minutes after arriving, Kenika called her older sister. That would be the last time her family ever heard from her. Over the next couple of hours, she drank cognac heavily while posting videos and going live on Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. By 3:15 a.m., the girls were ready to leave, but Kenika was too drunk to walk on her own. Staggering, barely able to stand, she realized she'd forgotten her phone and car keys upstairs, so her friends left her alone by the elevator to retrieve them. By the time they returned, she was gone. Panic set in. Her friends called Kenika's mother, Teresa Martin, who rushed to the hotel by 5 a.m., but the hotel staff refused to help without a police report. So she called 911. And that report wasn't filed until 1:15 p.m., hours after Kenika had vanished. Police combed through endless hours of CCTV footage. Eventually, they spotted her alone stumbling through the hotel hallways, but they didn't see her going somewhere else or exiting the building. Eventually, on September 10th, they spotted her alone walking into an unused kitchen area on the lower level. Immediately, the hotel staff was instructed to check the kitchen, but nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to see. Kenika was found face down inside a walk-in freezer, one shoe off, frozen to death. There were no signs of trauma or violence, so the authorities ruled the death as accidental hypothermia, worsened by alcohol intoxication and prescription medication of a drug called topiramate. But her mother and the public were not convinced. She was not on prescription for that drug, and the CCTV footage didn't show her walking into the freezer. Teresa Martin filed a $50 million lawsuit accusing the hotel of negligence. In December 2023, they settled for $10 million. The case was officially closed, although many questions are still left unanswered.
Kenika was cross-faded on a level her body couldn't handle. She had alcohol and prescription meds hitting her system at the same time. That zombie walk everyone sees on the CCTV, that is not a supernatural possession. That is what happens when a central nervous is shutting down. She wasn't being lured into the freezer by a ghost. She was so disoriented. She probably thought she was walking into a bathroom or an exit. When you are that far gone, your brain loses the ability to distinguish between a door from a wall or a kitchen from a hallway. She is a strategy of bad decisions and bad friends. If you are going to a party, you better have people who value your life more than the next song, because at the end of the night, a freezer door doesn't care if you are just having fun. Don't let a good time be the last time anybody sees you alive.
Prank YouTubers gone wrong. It's just a prank! It's a video! How often have we heard terrified pranksters shout that out when something they hoped would lead to laughs didn't go their way? Well, sometimes that four-letter phrase isn't enough to make viewers laugh it off. One of the worst prank videos ever was uploaded by YouTuber Sam Pepper, titled "Killing Best Friend Prank." In the video, Sam pretends to kidnap Vine stars Sam Golbach and Colby Brock. As Golbach watched and begged, Sam pretended to shoot Brock. Golbach began screaming hysterically. This wasn't the first time Sam had done a prank that went too far. But this time, the backlash was a lot worse. Thousands of people signed petitions to get him offline, and Anonymous, yes, that Anonymous, ordered him to take down the video. Sam was forced to delete not just that video, but all of his other pranks and apologized. Golbach later claimed that he had been in on it.
People don't believe me that that was acting. They're still like, oh, he got traumatized, that was real.
While fake killing pranks are rare, robbery pranks are pretty popular. And in February 2021, 20-year-old Timothy Wilkes wanted a piece of that action. A group of people were in the parking lot of a family trampoline park in Nashville, Tennessee, when Timothy showed up with a friend holding butcher knives and confronted them. Timothy and his friends didn't know that someone in the group was armed, and when he demanded money, he was shot and killed. No charges were filed against the person who shot him. That's not the only time a prank has ended with someone dying. Pedro Ruiz was on a quest to be the next big YouTube star. He planned to start his YouTube channel with a bang, shooting the scariest prank ever, literally. Pedro came up with the idea to hold a 1.5-inch thick encyclopedia in front of his chest while his girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez, shot a handgun at him. 30 onlookers gathered, including their 3-year-old child, to watch as a pregnant Mona Lisa pulled the trigger. The bullet went right through the book, and Pedro died right there. Mona Lisa got off lightly because the transcript from the never-released video showed she hadn't really wanted to go ahead with the prank. She would be sentenced to 90 days behind bars, 10 years probation, and banned from owning firearms.
Sandpaper didn't prank his friend. He assaulted his psyche for a paycheck. This is the ultimate example for clout poisoning. When you are willing to break someone's spirit just to fix your engagement numbers, you aren't a YouTuber. You are just a psychopath with a ring light.
Level 5. Truck stops just in time. In rural Norway, this bus was carrying school children on their way home from a field trip. When the driver finally arrived at the destination, he stopped to allow the children to get off. Everything was normal, ordinary. But then, childhood innocence turned the whole scene into a very dangerous and almost tragic situation. As the kids climbed off the bus, they moved to the back of the vehicle, leaving them blind to the oncoming traffic from their right. Yet one of the children doesn't hesitate to run across the road and just happens to pick the exact moment that a giant truck comes barreling toward him. Fortunately, the truck driver is conscious enough to put his foot on the brake, and the child instantly runs from the truck, just about managing to save his own life. Had the driver been even a second slower to react, this scene would have been far, far more tragic. This child could have been killed, and all because he was too excited to wait. It's just another reminder not to take any chances when it comes to traffic.
That kid didn't survive because he was lucky. He survived because a Swedish engineer spent years making sure a truck would stop on a dime. The road has zero mercy. Stop treating highways like a playground. If you are one distracted driver or one old braking system away from being a memory, respect the machines, respect the road, and for the love of God, look both ways. And I think the school bus driver should be helping this kid to cross the road before moving on.
Orca trainer. On February 24, 2010, veteran orca trainer Dawn Brancheau was tragically killed during a live show at SeaWorld Orlando. She'd been with SeaWorld for over 15 years and was considered one of their most experienced trainers. She was especially bonded with one of the most famous orcas in the park, Tilikum, and was usually trusted with him completely. Sadly, wild animal bonding is always highly unpredictable, considering how it was Tilikum that ended up killing Dawn. On the day of her tragic death, she was performing a routine with the animal as a part of one of the programs at the park. Literally, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Everything was calm, and Tilikum was just as cooperative as he's always been. In fact, there's even a simple tourist-made video that surfaced afterward. It essentially showed Dawn literally a few moments before the incident. In the video, she was interacting with Tilikum by lying beside Tilikum on the slide-out platform and casually offering him treats. If viewers didn't know the context of the clip, they'd even find it utterly wholesome. That changed when moments later, the seemingly passive Tilikum suddenly grabbed her and latched onto her. He violently pulled her into the water and bit into her in different parts of her body. What followed was an absolutely nightmarish 45-minute struggle. Tilikum tossed and thrashed her around and refused to let rescuers intervene. And before anyone could even get to her, it was too late. Dawn had died from drowning and blunt force trauma. Reports later state that she had severed her spinal cord, fractured her jawbone, and even had her scalp completely separated. The aftermath was massive and deservedly so. The entire incident became this great debate on the ethics and moral inadequacies of keeping such large and intelligent creatures in captivity. These are the same creatures that are known for traversing more than 100-kilometer distances in a single day. Imagine the devastating toll captivity would have on an animal this free. Additionally, some other very horrific details of SeaWorld's orca training came out. Apparently, the way they made the animals do tricks was to deprive them of food. They would only get something to eat when they did the tricks. Their trainer was practically screaming at them. Most of these animals in the tank would be on the verge of starvation. And yes, nothing can change the fact that the incident was absolutely horrific. But there's also the idea that maybe not taking away an animal's freedom is probably the safest, not only for the animal, but also the humans involved as well.
It's sad because it was a preventable tragedy. Dawn wasn't an enemy. She was Tilikum's only source of interaction. But at the end of the day, Tilikum isn't a person in a wetsuit. He is an apex predator. We have this dangerous, habit of humanizing animals. We think because they smile or follow a whistle that they share our morals and our emotions. They don't. An animal doesn't have mercy or loyalty as we humans do. They have instincts and triggers. The saddest part of the telecom story is that everyone lost. A talented woman lost her life, and a magnificent creature spent the rest of his life as a killer in a small pool.
Tesla crash. On the morning of November 5th, 2022, Zan, the owner of a Tesla Model Y, was on his way to his cement store in Chaozhou, China. But what began as a routine drive quickly turned into a nightmare. The problem started when Zan couldn't park the car. The vehicle suddenly swerved and began accelerating uncontrollably, reaching high speeds over a stretch of 2.6 kilometers. At first, a motorcycle passed by and the Tesla swerved to avoid it, but just over a kilometer in, it struck another motorcycle heading in the same direction. The rider died at the scene, yet the impact wasn't enough to stop the car. The Tesla kept going. Moments later, it collided with a bicycle coming from the opposite direction, but the rider survived with minor injuries. Then it hit a cargo tricycle, causing the car to veer sharply to the right. From there, it slammed into a dumpster truck, struck a high school girl riding her bicycle, and crashed into a van before finally coming to a stop. 3 people, including Zan, were seriously injured. The teenage girl did not survive. After the crash, Zan insisted he hadn't been distracted or intoxicated. He claimed he repeatedly tried to hit the brakes, but the vehicle wouldn't respond. However, Tesla had a different story to tell. Tesla's forensic analysis showed that the accelerator pedal was at 100% engagement in the seconds before the crash. No braking input was detected at any point. In March 2023, a court-appointed forensic agency concluded the cause of the crash was driver error, not mechanical failure. Tesla was cleared of liability. Zan now bears full responsibility for a tragedy that claimed 2 lives.
The Chaozhou crash isn't just a car accident. It's a horror movie about losing control. Whether it was the car's brain or the driver's foot that failed, the result was the same. Lives were lost in the blur of white paint and screeching tires.
Pizza bomber heist. Brian Wells. On October 28, 2003, Brian Wells, a 46-year-old pizza delivery man, walked into a PNC bank in Erie, Pennsylvania wearing a collar bomb. He handed the teller a note which explained that if he was not given $250,000, the bomb would detonate and he would die. But Brian left with only $8,702 and was quickly apprehended by police on the way out. There was no question that the heist had been a resounding disaster. Only Brian was seemingly not part of any heist. He told the police that he had been forced to commit the robbery by 3 black men who had attached the bomb to his neck. But as he sat handcuffed in a parking lot waiting for the bomb squad to remove it, the device started ticking. As the police ran, Brian began to panic and freak out until the device detonated, killing him instantly. But in the aftermath of his death, the investigation revealed a shocking twist. Wells was not an innocent victim at all. He was an active participant in the plot. The authorities discovered that the heist was part of a grander and more complicated plan. The masterminds didn't care about the money from the heist. It would simply be used to pay for a hitman. The real goal was to murder the father of one of the masterminds, all to claim an inheritance. The plot was overly complicated, involving a scavenger hunt with a series of timed tasks that Wells was supposed to complete to defuse the bomb. However, it was later determined that the bomb could never have been safely removed, making Wells' survival impossible. He was nothing more than an expendable distraction. The case took years to unravel, complicated by the deaths of key witnesses and the mental health issues of some conspirators. But eventually in 2008, the other masterminds were sentenced to 45 years in prison or a life sentence plus 30 years.
Brian Wells didn't die because of a heist went wrong. He died because he was a pawn in a game played by people who had lost their minds. It's a reminder that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't just a bomb. It's a person with a plan and no conscience.
Grisly stunt. Stefan Miller was a professional animal trainer and stuntman who had years of animal experience under his belt. He'd worked alongside his cousin Randy Miller to train wild animals for entertainment purposes. Basically, they would provide animals for different movies for certain high-stakes wild animal scenes. One of their most famous animals was a massive 700-pound grizzly bear called Rocky, who was already a superstar and had worked as Dewey the Killer Bear in the film Semi-Pro. Rocky wasn't directly Stefan's bear, but the two were fairly acquainted, so when Randy asked Stefan to film with Rocky for an ad shoot, Stefan didn't hesitate. On paper, Rocky was a trained bear. He had already starred in a movie after all. His trainers were convinced he was used to being around people, especially people experienced with wild animals. And Stefan fit that bill. The shoot in question was supposed to be a staged wrestling scene between him and Rocky, with a full safety team present. So technically, there was no danger. That's what the video shows at first, too. Stefan is calmly standing beside Rocky, waiting for the cue to start. That's when Rocky rubs his mouth along the side of Stefan's neck, something that almost seems affectionate if taken out of context. But within seconds, everything goes wrong. Rocky suddenly lunges at Stefan, grabbing him by the neck and starts shaking him violently, almost as if he literally becomes blinded by his apex predator tendencies. You can see the safety people behind the camera shuffling around to try to distract Rocky in order to get him off. They have to resort to using bear spray and large canes on him, but by then it's already too late. Stefan stumbles away from the bear and out of frame, but collapses almost immediately. He had taken massive damage to his jugular vein and carotid artery. In the end, Randy was forced to give up Rocky's film licenses. The bear wasn't euthanized, but he was permanently banned from ever working in film or TV again. Like so many similar cases, this one just proves that no matter how trained they seem, wild animals will always be wild. And sadly for Stefan, this video is the only thing left to tell that story.
This is not the first time I am saying this about how we treat wild animals. They don't really have emotions. No matter how you've trained them, they can still hurt you. Respect the wild by staying out of it. If you want a bond with an animal, get a golden retriever. If you go into a territory of an apex predator with nothing but a camera and a poem, don't be surprised when the credits roll early. Nature doesn't want your love, it wants your respect.
Driving through a wildfire. In August 2018, Justin Bilton and his 70-year-old father were camping 2.5 miles up the North McDonald Trail in Glacier National Park, Montana. But one night, they noticed a wildfire not far away, rapidly spreading through the wilderness. Initially, the fire covered just 5 acres, but it quickly grew to engulf over 2,000 acres in a matter of hours. Realizing the danger they were in, they made the difficult decision to immediately hike back to their car, which was parked at the end of a dead-end road. Their only escape route was through the fire. The dashcam video reveals the intense and downright frightening conditions they faced. As they spread through the fire, the flames and smoke were everywhere, falling debris collapsing around the car, which itself was heating up very quickly. And the whole time, Justin was just thinking about the dangers that weren't so obvious. What if the car blows up?
The car's heating up, it's gonna explode.
Fortunately, his dad was calm and composed, encouraging his son to drive easy and slow down. They would be fine. But that was not the way it went. Their escape was nearly stopped entirely when they encountered a falling, burning tree blocking their path. Another dead end. They had no choice but to reverse back through the inferno, making the escape even more dangerous than it already was. Luckily for them, 2 park employees were waiting in a boat ready to rescue them. Their car was abandoned to the flames, but they emerged with their lives intact. The fire was started by a lightning strike, eventually going on to burn down over 14,000 acres in Glacier National Park. If they had been even a few minutes slower, they would have been killed.
The most disturbing part of the video was the fire, but the most inspiring thing was the father's voice. He was terrified, but he didn't scream, he didn't panic break. He kept his toes steady on the gas. Panic is actually a death sentence. If he had lost his cool, he would have crashed. His calm was the shield that protected his kids. It shows that even when the world is melting, the mind is the best survival tool.
The Station Nightclub Fire. On February 20th, 2003 in West Warwick, Rhode Island, the band Jack Russell's Great White were performing at the Station nightclub, a small but hugely popular venue in town. But before they ended their first song, the situation turned deadly. Pyrotechnics used as part of the band's act ignited flammable acoustic foam lining the walls and ceiling near the stage. Within seconds, the flames spread rapidly all across the ceiling and walls. Initially, much of the audience thought the fire was part of the show, but panic quickly ensued as the situation worsened. Smoke was visible at exit doorways within a minute, and flames broke through the roof in less than 5. The nightclub, which lacked a sprinkler system, became engulfed in flames in just 6 minutes. And despite having 4 exits, most patrons attempted to escape through the main entrance, creating a deadly bottleneck. The narrow hallway leading to that one exit became blocked as people desperately pushed to get out, resulting in numerous deaths and injuries. It just so happened that a cameraman for a local TV news company was doing a report on the club's safety protocols that night and captured the entire ordeal. Firefighters arrived quickly, but the fire's rapid spread made rescue efforts extremely challenging, with the building's partial roof collapse making it even harder to do anything to save those involved. 100 people died, with another 230 seriously injured. In the aftermath, investigations revealed multiple factors contributing to the high death toll. The use of flammable foam, lack of sprinklers, overcrowding with 462 people crammed into a space licensed for 404, limited and poorly designed exits, and inadequate emergency response planning. The tragedy led to a lot of legal consequences and prompted changes in fire safety regulations. The nightclub owners and the band's tour manager faced criminal charges, and civil lawsuits resulted in millions of dollars in settlements.
The most disturbing part of the video is the front door. Everyone, and I mean everyone, tried to leave through the same door they came in. They ignored the 3 other exits. In the panic, they jammed the doorway so tightly that people couldn't move. You see a pile of people, 4 or 5 deep, stuck in the frame, while the black smoke swallows them from behind. It's a chilling reminder that in a crisis, the crowd is more often dangerous than the fire. Never trust a building and never follow a crowd in such situation, but you should rather find other ways to get out and be the person who knows where the side door is, because when the music stops and the smoke starts, you don't have to think, you only have time to move. Respect the fire and always have an exit plan.